It says, determine the location of trapezoid WXYZ after translating it to the left 3 and up 4. And then you're reflecting it over the line y equals x if these are your coordinate points. So what we're going to do is we're going to plot the original points. We're going to translate it, and then we're going to reflect it. And then the final image is the final answer. So it's exactly what we've been doing, but now we're doing multi-steps. So let's first start by plotting these points. These are like the problem points. So we're plot these points on our graph. It should look like a trapezoid. So take a minute and plot your points. What? Oh, yeah. So you should have a cute little baby trapezoid. Sorry. Okay. Oops. So after we plot the original, that's our starting thing. What do we have to do first based on the sentence that they gave me? Because we have to go in order by the sentence. Perfect. So the first thing we have to do is we have to translate it to the left 3 and up 4. So this doesn't involve any math. We're literally going to take our coordinates. We're going to go left 3. We're going to go up 4. So take every single point from your trapezoid and left 3, up 4. So my cute little baby trapezoid should look exactly the same. All it did was shift left and then up. So what would be the rule to what I just did? What would be like the math rule? X minus 3 because I'm going left, and y plus 4. So remember this rule they're going to look for on your EOC. So since I went left, I'm minusing. Since I went up, I'm plussing. So technically, I could do the math to these coordinate points. If I take -4 and I subtract 3, that gives me -7. If I take y, which is 6, and I add 4, that gives me 10. And then if you look at your graph, your coordinate for W should be at -710. So you don't have, you could either do the math or you could literally move it. I think you should just move it because it's easier and you don't have to like think about adding and subtracting numbers. So if I did that to X, where would X prime be at? -5 and what? 10. Good. What about Y prime? And 8. And last but not least, Z prime. And 8. Okay, good. So that's what like the normal problems have been. It's just been like one step, but now we're not done. So that's the first transformation. That's your X prime, W prime, Z prime, whatever prime. Okay, prime, the first one means first prime. Now what we're going to do is we are going to find out where it's going to be W double prime, X double prime, Y double prime, and Z double prime after the second transformation. The second transformation says, and then we're going to reflect it over the line y equals x. Does anybody remember what that line looks like? Yes, it is one of the diagonals. It has a positive slope. So if you start at 0, 0, because they're always going to start at 0, 0, it's a positive slope. So you're going up to the right corner. And technically it goes all the way across the graph. So this is my line. Y equals x. Now, when you have a diagonal line, it's a little tricky because you cannot just count to the left and to the right and up and down like we were doing yesterday. If it's a diagonal, it's technically turning the image. So if I were to like fold this graph over here, it's actually going to end up like over here because we're going to move this one. So for the rule for this, which we did talk about like last week, the rule for this, your diagonal lines, these are the ones that you need to remember. So far, we've only done this stuff, okay? These rules, you need to remember how to do them. So if it's a positive slope, all you're doing is you're taking your coordinate, whatever X and Y is, and all you're doing is flipping it. So it kind of gives you the equation in the rule. They're going to say Y equals X, Y goes in the front, X goes in the back. So it's literally going to flip the coordinate. So in parentheses, your rule is going to be Y, comma, X. These rules will not be given to you on the EOC. So you do need to remember them. So the trick is literally they're telling you Y goes in front, X goes in the back, because they have to give you the equation. It's positive slope, so it just stays exactly the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our coordinate and we're going to flip it. Okay, here. Take your paper from the rainbow cart just with you and then go back there.
Am I gonna get my attendance space?
Yeah. Okay. So if W prime was negative 710, because you're not using the original, you're using the ones you just made it, and I flip it, what's my coordinate going to be? 10, negative 7. What would X double prime be? 10, negative 5. Y double prime? 8, negative 4. And then last but not least, 8, negative 8. So we're going to plot these points, and you're going to see it's going to slightly like turn on its side because you're not just reflecting over, it's going to turn. So 10, negative 7. I know. It's not like, I don't know who's been texting me all day. It's like a bunch of random people, and I'm not really sure what's happening and why people are freaking out today. Y, 8, negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So because your picture is going to have like 3 different shapes, technically it could go up to 3 steps. So you could have technically 4 shapes. You could have the original, the 2 transformations, and then like your final one. You're going to shade in the last one. So this is my last transformation. I shifted it and I reflected it. So that one is technically the answer to all of this. So these coordinate points, if they wanted like the coordinate points to the answer, it would be these coordinate points. You don't have to circle them, but it's always going to be the last step because you moved it and then you reflected it. So your coordinate points have been changed twice. So the last image is the answer. Let's do it again. Turn it into the. Okay, so number 2, same thing. Number 2 says, if triangle ABC has vertices, blah, 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 determine A double prime, B double prime, C double prime after a reflection over the y-axis. And then we're going to translate it to the right 6 and down 7. So start by putting your original coordinates on your graph. So A is 1, 2. And then what am I going to have to do first? Heck yes. So I have to reflect it over the y-axis. It does matter which one you do first. So you have to go in order. So if you try to go out of order, it's going to mess you up. So you're reflecting across the y-axis first. So the y-axis is a vertical line just smack dab in the middle. It's literally the y-axis. People are getting confused because yesterday we said y equals is a horizontal line, which if it's y equals a number, it is a horizontal line. But if it is the y-axis, it's literally the y-axis. So this one's nice and easy peasy. This is where we just count from the left to the right because we're matching it from this side to this side. So it's flipping over here. So how many is A to the right? 1. So now you're going 1 to the left. So you don't need to remember the rule for this one. You can just literally use the graph to match it on the other side. So once you make your picture, put your coordinates over here. Yeah. All I did was plot the points in the thing. So where's A prime at? -1, 2. What about B prime? -4, 6. And C prime? -6, 1. Does anybody notice how the coordinates went from here to here? The X went to negative. You don't have to remember this rule. It does have a rule. The X will just change its sign. Y stays exactly the same. You don't need to remember the rule because you could just use the graph. Okay. So, but that is technically a rule. So now we need to do the second part. The second part that is stated says we're going to translate it to the right 6. And then we're going to go down 7. So what would be the rule for right 6 and down 7? Heck yes. Okay, nice. So once again, I would just use the graph. You're going right 6, down 7, and just finding the point. How do we feel? Is it terrible? It's not terrible, right? We've done worse things in our lives. Just make sure you shade in your last image so that way you can tell which one easily is the actual answer. And then the last one we're doing together is 3. So take a second, you're going to plot your original points, exactly the same thing. For this one, A double prime should be at 5, -5, B double prime should be at 2, -1, and C prime double prime should be at 0, -6. So take a second, plot your original. This is a parallelogram, so it's going to look like a rectangle, but it's like a little crooked. Oops. Okay, so the first thing we got to do, it says determine the coordinates of it after a reflection over the line, y equals negative x. How does this line look? Crooked. It's crooked again, but this is a negative slope. So whenever you're starting at 0, 0 this time, it's going to be a negative line. So positive increases from left to right, like I wish my bank account would do. But what it actually does is it goes down from left to right because I run out of money because I like Starbucks. So I go every day. So that's all my funds. Ah, I forgot the negative. So it's a negative slope. So it's a negative line. So it's going down.
You have the app.
Heck yeah, I have the app. Got to get those stars. Got to get my free coffee.
You get like points.
Heck yeah. Then they give you free coffee. And then when they give me a free coffee, I like rack it up to make like a $12 coffee because I get like cold foam and caramel. I'm going to get my points worth. Okay, anyways, extra shots of espresso. So if it's reflecting over a negative line, these are the ones that you need to remember. Your coordinate changes from XY just like a normal XY. And what it's going to do is it's going to flip. And does anybody else remember what happens with it? It doesn't just flip the negative line. It turns negative, but both values are going to turn negative. So they kind of show you where it goes. The Y goes in the front, the X goes in the back, kind of like, see how it's set up? Like they literally give it to you. Y goes in the front, X goes in the back, but because it's negative, both values are negative because it's a negative line. So if I flip it and I'm making them both negative, what would I prime be if I flip it and I make it negative? Nope. Positive 2, positive 2. Why does it turn positive? Because they're already negative. So literally it changes the sign from negative to positive, positive to negative. So literally double negatives just make a positive. So think about it as like people think like it has to be negative. No, it's not negative. It just changes the sign. So instead of -5, -2, what's it going to be? 2, 5. And then K prime? 5, 0. And then L prime? 5, 3. So in this case, all of them turned positive because right now they're all down here in the double negatives. But sometimes they'll be negative, sometimes they'll be positive. So you just have to look at your numbers. So these two diagonal rules, anytime you have a diagonal, I think the rules, you just need to remember them. So I'm going to plot my points. It's going to reflect over this. So that's why you can't really count. Some of you could figure it out where it's going to go because some of you have really big brains. But I would say 95% of you are just going to have to use the rule. So, but it's not hard. It's changing the number in the sign. So 2, 5. 5 zeros over here. Make sure you plot it correctly because people put it up at the top instead of down in the middle. And then 5, 3, L prime. Okay. The second thing we have to do to this, after we reflect it over the diagonal line, the last thing we got to do is we have to translate it 5 to the right and 5 up. This, you don't need to remember the rule. You can literally just use the graph. But if I was going to write the rule for this, what would it be? X plus 5 and Y plus 5 because you're going to the right and you're going up. So both of those are positive. So you're going to take your blue parallelogram and you're going to go right and up.
Why do you have to put the letters
Because like over here.
in general?
Because on the EOC, what they're going to say, they're going to give you like a problem literally just like this. They're not going to give you this fancy little box. So this box is not going to be there. I think the box just helps you like organize your work, especially because we're just learning this. So like it helps you organize it. You'll have a blank piece of graph paper, so you could plot your points if you want. Or if you remember the rules, they're going to ask for, they're going to say, if the parallelogram has vertices, determine the vertice of L double prime. They'll probably just ask for one of them, L double prime, after a reflection and after translating it. So you don't actually have to worry about all of them on the EOC. They'll normally just ask for one of the coordinates, but you'll have to do like 2 transformations on that one coordinate point. So you could move the whole image or you could just move L. I think it's best if you graph it because it's like easy to do on a graph, especially if you don't know the rules. So Does anybody know where I double prime ended up? 7, 7. What about J? Heck yeah. Okay. Heck yeah. And last but not least, 10, 8. Nice. Okay. So I want you to try by yourself. Let's see if you can figure it out. The one on the back, the top one on the back. Take a couple minutes, talk to the person next to you, maybe, see how their picture is going. See if you can do it by yourself. And then you only have like 4 to completely do by yourself. I want to see if you could figure this one out. So start by plotting the original. And this should look like a square when you plot it. Not a rectangle.
What's Bayside High School?
Bayside's like where people go to like do credit recovery.
Oh,
Why? It's
oh, we don't know. I know.
yeah,
He got expelled from 7.
it's usually
He's like, I hate stuff. And then he showed up for children on Bayside.
yeah, Bayside's like where you get sent when you're like a bad kid. But sometimes like it's like not necessarily that you're bad. It's like for kids who get kicked out of schools, like expelled, and then like have been like moved to a different school and then they get expelled again. Then they have a Bayside. But then some people just go to Bayside if they're like really behind in credits. Then they go to Bayside to make up credits. It's like literally right across the street from Pinellas County Jail.
Whoa.
I was like, how ironic. They put it there. Because it's usually the people who are a hot mess. Yeah. So this one, you're just going 6 units up. So once you got your square, you're going 6 units directly up. You don't have to go like left or right, anything. Also, it should not look like a rectangle. Like this is what you should have so far. It should look like a square. That's like the original image. A lot of people are plotting like A and M. It's like I go like this. You're just going up 6. You're making the image so you don't have to go left or right anything. And then you're going to try to reflect over the line y equals x. And y equals x is positive y. So all you're doing is you're taking whatever coordinate you got and all you're doing is flipping the spot. You gotta write it. Because you 5, -1, you take 5 positive. You went over -5, you went up. So this point should be here. This point should be here. No, this point should be here. Um, So if you go up 6, you should be at least this far, hopefully. If you go up 6, where is J prime at? -5, 9. K prime is at -5, 5. L prime should be at -1, 9. And last but not least, where's that last one at? -1, 5. Okay. Did anybody figure out what the rule would be if I'm just going up 6? You're missing a piece. You could put x plus 0 if you want, or you could literally just leave x alone. X stays exactly the same. If you put x plus 0, that's fine. That's correct, technically. And then you're technically going up 6, so y plus 6 stays the same. Now, the last thing that you need to do is the hard part, which is the tricky part, which is reflecting over the line y equals x. A lot of people think this is the y-axis or the x-axis. It's not. It's a diagonal. It's a positive slope, so you're going diagonally this way. It's going to look like it just shifted because it's a square, so it's kind of like turning on its like side, which a square on its side is just a square. Anyways, so this is y equals x. So what's the rule for this? Yx. So you're flipping it. So you're literally just taking your coordinates and you should just be flipping them. So the first one should be 9, -5. The second one should be 5, -5. The third one should be 9, -1. And M double prime is 5, -1. So you're just flipping it. You don't have to worry about the signs. The sign just goes with the number. And then it should end up somewhere over here because since it's at the top over here, now it's going to end up on the side over here. And then you're going to shade in your last one. La, 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 la. And then if you look at your letters, it's a reflection. So M is technically the closest to the line of reflection. So on the other side, M is still the closest. So although it looks like it literally shifted down there, M is here across from each other. J is across from each other. L is across from each other. And K is across from each other. So you have your 4 problems at the bottom. You don't need to write out the chart of the coordinate points if you don't want to. If you want to write out the coordinate points, you can write out the coordinate points, but this chart is not going to be there on the EOC. So like, this is just for organization purposes. You should be able to do it realistically without writing out the coordinates and just using the graph to kind of flip it and translate it. The only ones I would suggest maybe writing them out for would be your diagonal lines. If it has a diagonal line, which is the bottom 2 problems you have to do, those ones, it might be helpful to write out your coordinates. Remember, you have to go in order. So like if it says to translate it first, you have to translate it first. If it says to reflect it first, you have to reflect it first, or else the picture will end up in a different spot. How do we feel? Right? Eh. Okay. Let me know if you need help. If you've been stuck on your IXLs, let me know so that way I can help you on your IXLs.
Did you grade them?
I did not. I plan on grading them on Friday because I'm trying to leave them up for a little bit. That way, like people who were absent or people who need help can ask in class.